I have found that it's more impactful to get people into doing work together. And then those differences come up, those power things come up, and then you have a conversation about them in the context of the work we're doing, and any resolution moves the work forward and helps us actually do the thing we want to do.
Welcome to The Way Change Works, the podcast from the Association of Change Management Professionals. I'm your host, Greg Voller. Our show features global leaders telling stories about creating lasting and meaningful change in organizations, communities, and lives. These stories reflect our belief that at ACMP, beyond the technology, processes, and structures that are key elements in our profession, true change is only possible through the positive transformation of human behavior and beliefs. In this episode, I'm talking with Tuesday Ryan-Hart, a systems change strategist for a firm called The Outside. For the clients she and her colleagues serve, Tuesday leads large-scale systems change with a deep understanding and practice of how equity, when put at the center of new movements, frees the path to better ideas that work. She helps diverse organizations and communities with shared interests reframe commonly held assumptions and persistent issues. And as change professionals, it's incredibly important that we connect as humans with the people that we're trying to impact. Tuesday drives that point home with a heart-wrenching story from her time as an anti-violence against women activist, an area where changes to systems and laws are of life-altering consequence.
So I started, frankly, as in activism, and I was really, that was my way of making change in the world. So I worked in domestic violence, I worked in sexual violence, violence against women, and really developed an expertise in that intersection between violence and gender and race. And so kind of felt all those three things coming together in my work. And so, of course, to do that, you have to have kind of an analysis of the system. And I was working directly with victims. And so kind of like all of those, I was working at all of those levels all of the time. And that's kind of a key part of our theory of change too, is working at all the levels all the time. And I loved that work. Felt like I was helpful in that work, felt like I got camaraderie and a lot of benefit from being in movement space, which can be quite supportive and loving, and like you're in hard work, but you're in it together. There's a real feeling of solidarity. So my role working in domestic violence was as a therapist and as a support group leader. And so part of what we did was we brought together women. At that point, it was cis women every week to talk about the violence that was happening in their lives. And so this particular woman, Mary, was a person who came to that support group and shared her story about what she was experiencing with her partner who had become violent with her. And we all felt a lot of concern. He was quite violent, and his threats were upsetting and distressing. And so she came to the support group. We did what we always do in the support groups, which is like talk about the situation, give each other emotional support, but also do what we call safety planning, which is like, what will you do if, where will your child be if and when he becomes violent? How will you leave the house? Where will your car keys be? Who will you call? That kind of like nitty gritty, when it hits the fan, what will you do? Because, like when violence happens, it's quite disorienting. And so having some kind of plan is useful. And so all of, we made a safety plan with her. We expressed our concerns. We did all the steps that are possible to do with someone. And so, you never leave those situations feeling great. You leave feeling like you've done what you can do. And so that happened in group. And in the next group, one of her friends came in and let us know that she had been murdered by him. And all of the other women in the room are also facing that situation, right? So it's devastating to hear about this loss, but it's also scary to everyone in the room. And so it had a major impact on the group. It had a major impact on me. It kind of shifted where I wanted to put my focus from individuals, even though like the power of that group was amazing. And so I always say like the affirmation of relationships, like that was there, but also my desire to move into a system so that like we never had to experience that again. And of course, that's not true. Women are still, I don't know the statistic because I've been out of the field for a while, but it used to be something like a woman's killed like every 25 seconds or something by their partner. I don't know what it is at this moment. So we haven't changed that, but we have changed laws. We've changed policies on how people are arrested. We've changed the ability to get protection orders. We've changed how women are treated in civil cases. And divorces around domestic violence. Like there's a huge amount of continuing systemic effort to change the system. It's slow moving, but I think without a doubt that changes are happening. So that was kind of one of the places I moved from individual to system.
I think it's really so incredibly powerful to hear your journey. And it's because for us as change professionals, it's incredibly important that we really connect as humans with the people that we're trying to impact. And that's so incredibly hard in organizational settings where the goals are not driven by human output by and large with all of that. Okay. So I want to take our audience and you, I still want to go deeper to learn even more about you, because I think it's incredibly helpful for how others then can see how their journey can move forward as well too. And so a couple of follow-up questions here to this. So I'd love to hear more. Please share with our audience, who were some of the folks that inspired you along the way, from whatever angles and whatever parcels of your life that are important to you? We'd just love to hear more about who inspired you and what inspiration did you gain from some of those colleagues and friends and acquaintances along the way.
Like the people who have inspired me are the people who have said, there's something in you that I would like to nurture, and have done it in maybe quite an oblique way. So I think about folks like Arawana Hayashi from the Social Presencing Theater. Arawana is like this amazing dancer. And for me, she just attracted me through the way she moves her body and the way she thinks differently. And so I find myself using and learning from her concepts in a way that has never been a formal Tuesday, I'm going to teach you these things. And instead, as I've heard her speak or I've been in her workshops, I've just taken on some of what she says and how she thinks. And I think part of that is because she's so in her body. And so that's quite compelling to me. And I think we need a lot of that in systems change work. Like I think it can feel so heady. And when we're lucky, we can bring people into their hearts, but we hardly ever bring them into their bodies. And so a lot of what we try to do is like, you're a whole person, and how do we honor the body as well? So Arawana has certainly been someone who inspires me and challenges me. And of course, she's got this social presencing theater practice, but she's also got a Buddhist practice, and she's also a woman of color, right? There's lots of things about her that I can feel inspired by and lifted by. Certainly, I would say Adam Kahane, like most people know him. I mean, like he's just he's a lovely person and a person I consider a friend, who like gave me one of his books when I first met him. And I was like, who's this dude giving me this book? Ugh. Yeah. But then of course I read the book and I was like, oh, okay, probably should, know more about that. And he's just been a lovely guide to me when I have, questions or need support.
Well, those are some awesome examples, and thank you for sharing, Tuesday. So this is fascinating because it brings all together, this aspect of creating movements. And I hear in your journey, I hear in what you do in serving your clients now, a focus there is how to really shape human sustainable types of movements. And even that is a large description, in terms of really what is an opportunity. So say more about, the opportunity and the focus you have, and really about the key elements of really creating those movements that have meaning, that have impact to both people and the groups that they're proud to associate with.
Yeah. And one of the things we did a developmental evaluation with all of our clients. And we asked them, how are we helpful? How are we useful? What are you getting, right? Help us understand what we're actually giving to you, because we have a little time now to kind of like inform our theory of change and kind of shift our methods. And one of the words that people used was movement, that often we were in projects or work or, like transformation, whatever words they want to use, but they felt like they became part of a movement. And through that work, we build shared visions, shared analysis, but
Mhm.
really we build relationships. We actually build the capacity to be and work together across difference over time. And so we don't do things like diversity trainings or anti-racism trainings at the outside. I think that's great work. I'm happy that people do it. I did it for years. It's just not my bag at this, it's not what I want to do. I have found that it's more impactful to get
Mhm.
people into doing work together. And then those differences come up, those power things come up. And then you have a conversation about them in the context of the work we're doing. And any resolution moves the work forward, moves people more into relationship with each other, and helps us actually do the thing we want to do, which is like be
Yeah.
together across difference over time. And so there's something about sharing work, building relationships, and experimentation. And when we talk about movement, like there's something about the relief of we don't have to do it the right way. We just have to do it our way and then learn from it and then keep going. And again, these are fine. I love team building exercises. I love communication workshops. That's all fine. It's just not my work. We help people do those things as they're getting to work. That builds relationship. It builds sustainability right in. It gets the work done. And you help them learn to fail together and learn with each other. All of these pieces that change people's lives. And so when I talk about that developmental evaluation we did with all our clients, they talked about feeling part of something bigger. They talked about we're using the word movement, but they talked about feeling part of something bigger. They also talked about the personal transformation that comes from the work. And then kind of third, they talked about impacts we had, right? Like they were thrilled and we had impacts and they wanted that. But really it was about kind of feeling part of something, feeling themselves transform and getting results. It was kind of a stew of those three things.
Tuesday, there's so much humanity strung throughout everything that you just said there. And again, the focus on the individual, the recognition of their human experiences and how that culminates into who they are today. And so, and then, also too, as change professionals, we are also very need to be focused for the organizations we serve in delivering results and aligning with a project schedule and the benefits realization, which is a common term, right? And so how do you sort of break through for organizations that maybe have that stronger benefits realization mindset, keeping to a schedule that is within budget and maybe more prescriptive? How do you break through with your very human approach and the opportunities and the impacts that it can make for that organization?
Right. Well, I would say a couple of things. One is that we don't do any kind of formal readiness assessment, but we do a informal kind of will assessment, right? So one of the things that we kind of insist on right away is working with the very senior leadership right away to see what is the appetite and will for working in a different way. Because often you'll hear a lot that they're like, oh, we want to, and yet we can't do this, we can't do this, and we can't, like, so we try to get a sense of everyone wants to work differently, but like, are you really up for it? And that's just, it can be kind of, I'm sure we could do a more formal kind of assessment process. Right now, it's kind of like getting a sense of them, having several meetings with them, maybe doing a small engagement with the senior leadership right before we jump into a large scale change project to really get a sense of how they're working together. What is the will? What are the power dynamics? What are the agendas? So that we can see if we can be successful, right? And sometimes we gauge that correctly and sometimes we don't. We often also say that we follow less the work than we follow the people. And so it's my sense of you as a leader that often will bring me into work even more than the work itself. And I say that because the work, there will always be good work available, right? Like there's so much change that needs to happen that there's more than enough of that available. And so often it's my connection or our connection with a leader or leaders that let us know if there's actual will to do this in a more human-centered way. So that would kind of be the first kind of way, is assessing will at the very senior leadership level. We've had enough kind of getting clobbered by, like senior leadership that comes back and says no, that we've learned that lesson pretty well. And so there's a senior leadership assessment at the beginning. I think there's also, we work really closely with an internal team that we tend to call either an operations team or development team, depending on what phase of the project we're in. that needs to have a level of influence and ability to translate some of what we're bringing into their context. We know, right? Like, we're process experts. We're not content experts on with the people we go to. And so we're looking for mirrors inside the organization that we can work closely with, that can help translate, can help influence, can make sure that we're not kind of getting so far down the road on our process, right? That it's no longer fit for purpose and what they want. And so we always work very closely with an internal team to make sure that we're staying on budget and timeline and making the necessary adjustments we need. And then, like, I think one of it's not an official principle of the outside, but like, is like not making the perfect the enemy of the good, right? Like,
Yep.
We have what we want to do. We have the way we think we'd like to do it. We have the way, and we think it will work best. And that is absolutely based in relationships and based in kind of living systems and complexity theory. But at the end of the day, if the client is like, no, we're going to do it this way, we're going to try to figure out a way to do it in that particular way. Now, we might have to say, we think strategically that's, you're taking a big risk here, right? You've set people up. Like, we'll say all of that. We'll give the consultation that we need to. But that goes along with our, like, not being married to our dogma. It's a line, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm sure all of your folks know that this is really a line. How do we stay in integrity with what we do, which is never going to be, who cares about people, just get the results. Like, that's never going to be. So we sometimes don't take jobs. We'll say, like, we don't think we're the people for you, right? I can't tell you the number of times, like, we've tried to get fired off a job. I always say we're terrible at getting fired, right? Like, we don't think like what we do is what you need at this moment. We think what you want is a marketing plan. What you want is buy-in, and that's not what we do. We do creation together, right? So I think we tend to have like real conversations, and sometimes we get caught and we're like, shoot, we thought it was going to be this and now it's this. Okay, what's the best way to do this? But hopefully we've developed enough relationship with the senior leaders to talk about that. We have an operations or development team internally that we're talking about that with. So we are working in deep relationship with the people inside the organization who are helping us manage the project. Like, we don't ask the folks that we're working with to do anything we're not doing. So we move into deep relationship. We assess our will and appetite. Like, we look at like what we're willing to shift and transform in ourselves as we do the work, as well as insisting that other people shift and transform.
That's awesome. Tuesday, when you and I, first met, we talked about the opportunity and the possibility of you joining for a part 2 of the Way Change Works podcast. Potentially with one of the organizations that you serve. And so I'm just going to put that out as a tease right there to our audience as we go down that path. That being said, I still want to come back to, focus a little bit more on you and your journey now as well too. And because I am, wanting to have our audience hear about how you have broken through on your journey. And so there are a couple of follow-up questions around all of that as well too. So let's start here. What continues to give you energy now going forward? What really are your energy sources that you value and that you crave and that are so important to you right now on your personal journey of being a change leader?
It is a great question. So at this moment, a couple of things. One is three things. One is more articulation of our work. So like, this is a great exercise for me to like be articulating what we do. So right now I'm at a phase in my life where I want to talk about what we're doing and make it more accessible for folks rather than just deliver it. I think that we deliver really well. But we're publishing a book chapter. I'm writing a book proposal with a colleague right now. Like, I want to articulate what we do in a way I think that will be accessible for folks. So their articulation of our work and kind of the pausing and what are the lessons, what are the principles we can give to people? Because I think we're quite unique in our conception of equity and pulling it into systems work. I hope that our way of doing that work makes people feel more free, not more constricted. And so the articulation of our work is really giving me a lot of energy right now. the people I work with. Like I always say, I love the outsiders. Like there is nothing like, for years I was kind of freelance doing it on my own and kind of partnering at will. But now having the organization of 13 of us, I love the people I work with. I mean, whatever they want to do, I'm down. Let's do it. Let's go together. Let's like link arms and get it done. And so for me as a person who is quite, I would say like I'm an only child. I was the only child of a single parent. I really love my own company. Like I'm pretty self-contained. And like enjoy spending time by myself. The revelation of having a group of people that I really can lean on and lean into and rely on me for support is me relying on them for support is a great source of energy. I feel like we can take on bigger projects. When I feel confused about what to do, I no longer feel scared because I know I have folks who I can turn to and we will figure out how to help work with a client. And sometimes those people I turn to also come from my client load, right? Like, so there's something about the confusion or uncertainty about how to do the work is no longer disorienting and scary because I'm with good people. So that gives me a huge amount of energy, which is quite very different from early in my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, so I'm going to go a little bit maybe big here, and this will ask you to likely just sort of think about this next question that I'm just going to introduce in a second. But with your passion, with your enthusiasm for really strengthening equity where equity doesn't exist, I want to ask you two simple questions from that exercise for you to articulate, Tuesday, to our audience in an I am and I am not perspective in terms of where you are in your journey today.
I love that. If I think about my own evolution, starting in violence against women, like one of the things we always said and say and still say, and I think is very true, is I am not the things that happen to me.
Yes.
In my spiritual life, I'm going to tell you, I am absolutely the things that happen to me, that both of those things are true. I am a seeker of myself. I am not afraid of who I am. I am a deep practitioner of change. I am not afraid of the changes that are coming into this world. I am a Black, white, biracial woman. I am not what anyone thinks that is. I am a child of God or goddess. I am not interested in being anything else. I am doing my best to dance as a divine and be self-illuminated. I am not willing to settle for anything less in my life. Those would be the things that occur to me.
Tuesday, I have just enjoyed the opportunity to get to greater depths about your personal journey. And we, as you and I talked, we wanted to start there. We want to start there, to really help our audience who, so many of us as change professionals, we fast track into, doing work and sometimes really getting lost in the work. And frankly, forgetting about the humanity and the experiences that we can bring to that work in so many ways. So for our audience, this has been an intentional deep dive, and thank you so much, Tuesday, into sharing about your personal journey with the intent then that we're going to bridge into an opportunity with Tuesday and one of the organizations that she has impacted, not only impacted the organization, but impacted lives from that organization as well too. And so it's intentional, team. We wanted to help you learn more about Tuesday and your incredible journey. And so now that we can bridge into that opportunity to learn more about how Tuesday and her firm, the Outside, impacts organizations as well too. So with
Great.
that, Tuesday, just an awesome experience here. Thank you for sharing so much about you and helping us be inspired as we move forward here as well too.
Thank you for having me. This is great. It's great to be introspective out loud. So thanks for letting me do that. Thanks.
To learn more about the incredible work of Tuesday and her team at The Outside, check out their website at findtheoutside.com or their profiles on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Find the Outside. And to learn more about the Association of Change Management Professionals, especially our membership benefits, professional development offerings, and certification program, go to acmpglobal.org. Now, if you're not yet a subscriber to The Way Change Works, please add us wherever you listen to your podcasts. And be sure to tell your friends about us as well. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for leading how change works.